Today, we're breaking down an absolutely extraordinary medical case. Lankarani. We're talking about a mystery that was 6 years in the making, involving a long-forgotten surgery and a diagnosis that is truly 1 in a million. Okay, so let's just dive right in. I want you to imagine something for a second. You have a pretty standard operation. You recover, life goes on, for years. And then, completely out of nowhere, a complication from that exact surgery comes roaring back and brings your life to a screeching halt. Well, that's precisely what happened here. All right, here's how we're going to crack this case, just like the doctors did. We'll start with the baffling medical problem itself. Then, we'll hunt for the cause, uncover the incredibly rare diagnosis, walk through the intense surgery they performed, and finally, pull out the crucial lessons from what was left behind. So our story kicks off in 2024. A 54-year-old woman shows up at the hospital, and she is in really bad shape. For 3 solid weeks, she's been getting sicker and sicker. She's vomiting constantly, her stomach is painfully swollen, and she literally cannot keep any food or even water down. Her digestive system had a complete and total roadblock, a condition called a gastric outlet obstruction. The doctors knew there was a severe blockage. The huge question, though, was what was causing it? So the hunt for answers began, and the first place they looked was her past. And boom, here's our first big clue. 6 years earlier. 6 years! Back in 2018, the patient had her gallbladder removed. Well, kinda. It was a partial removal, a procedure called a subtotal cholecystectomy. For 6 years, everything was totally fine. And now suddenly, she's in the middle of a life-threatening emergency. So, could these two events possibly be connected? A CT scan gave the team their first real look inside, and the picture was startling. It showed a piece of her gallbladder had actually been left behind from that surgery all those years ago. And what was inside that leftover tissue? A massive gallstone. And that stone was now pressing against her small intestine, the duodenum, causing that complete obstruction. So to get a better look, they try to go in with an endoscopy, a tiny camera. But they hit a literal wall. The blockage was so tight, the scope couldn't get past it. They even tried using a balloon to stretch the area open. Nothing. The path was completely sealed off. So let's recap. You've got a remnant gallbladder, a giant runaway stone, and a totally impassable blockage. The team put all these clues together and landed on a diagnosis that is just almost unbelievable. So what in the world was going on? It's a condition called Bouveret syndrome. This is what happens when a gallstone gets so big, it literally punches a hole, what doctors call a fistula, right from the gallbladder into the intestine next door. It then gets stuck, creating a massive traffic jam. It's a really aggressive and bizarre complication. And just how rare are we talking? Well, think about it like this. Blockages from any kind of gallstone are already pretty unusual, making up less than 4% of all bowel obstructions. But Bouveret syndrome, it's just a tiny little sliver of those cases, about 0.12%. We are talking about the very definition of a medical zebra, but this case was even more unique. See, Bouveret syndrome almost always happens in people who still have their entire gallbladder. As the doctors noted in their report, this seems to be the first time it has ever been documented in a patient who'd had a partial gallbladder removal. This wasn't just rare, it was basically unheard of. Okay, so the diagnosis is confirmed and other treatments have failed. Surgery is the only path forward. But this wasn't going to be a simple procedure. This was a high-stakes operation with a really big decision to make right at the start. The surgical team had to pick a strategy. They could do it in 2 stages. First, just get the stone out to handle the immediate crisis, and then come back for a second surgery to fix everything else. Or they could do the 1-stage approach, tackle it all at once. The stone, the hole, the gallbladder remnant, the whole shebang. Because the patient was younger and otherwise healthy, they chose the more definitive, all-in-one surgery. And this was a seriously complex operation. It had 4 main parts. First, an open incision to get in there. Second, they removed that leftover gallbladder tissue and the giant stone. Third, they carefully stitched up the hole, that fistula, between the 2 organs. And finally, they created a new pathway, a bypass for the stomach, just to make absolutely certain this kind of blockage could never, ever happen again. And that incredibly complicated surgery, a complete success. The result was just fantastic. The patient recovered so quickly that she was able to go home in just 6 days. 6 days! Already eating and well on her way to a full recovery. Just amazing. So what does a 1 in a million case like this really teach the medical world? Well, it's a powerful reminder that in medicine, you should never, ever say never. The lessons here are crystal clear. It proves that leftover gallbladder tissue isn't always harmless and that this super rare syndrome can pop up where nobody expects it. It makes a powerful case for using the right diagnostic tools like CT scans and, for the right patient, choosing that single, decisive surgery to fix the problem for good. Ultimately, this story is really a testament to the doctors who looked past the obvious and pieced together an impossible puzzle. And it leaves us all with a pretty compelling question. What other medical mysteries are just out there, waiting for a team who dares to connect the dots in a way no one ever has before? This review by Dr. Reza Lankarani, who is a general surgeon, an editorial board member of the Genesis Journal of Surgery and Medicine, and the founder of the Surgical Pioneering newsletter and podcast series. To get more details on this incredible case and others like it, you can check out the Surgical Pioneering podcast series application